Okay, once again, welcome to today's Best Practice webinar, sponsored by Bpm'online. My name's Mike Rooney. I'm the Senior Vice President and General Manager here at Bpm'online. Today we're going to be discussing how to master digital transformation with CRM powered by BPM technologies. And I'm very happy to introduce, joining us today, a true pioneer in our industry, Barton Goldenberg, founder and president of ISM and the author of several books, one in particular, The Definitive Guide to Social CRM. Barton, thank you very much for joining us, and we're looking forward to the show.
Thank you, Mike, and good morning or good afternoon to all of you. What a great pleasure to be here. So the topic for today is how to master digital transformation with CRM powered by Bpm'online. And before I start, I make a quick thank you to BPM, a company that is, I'm in the industry for 31 years. I've looked at a lot of companies come in the industry. I've looked at a lot of companies go in the industry. I humbly submit, and they're not paying me for this webinar, so I have to make a point on that. I humbly submit that this is a real winning company. So for those of you that are not familiar with it, I certainly hope you'll be as intrigued as I have been over the last couple of years as capabilities. So I'm happy to be doing this in collaboration with BPM. I founded a company, as I alluded to, 31 years ago called ISM. We're based in Bethesda, Maryland. Mike already referred to the fact that I'm an author of several books and a forthcoming book on integrated customer-centric strategy. The only important point in this slide is the picture of me on a sailboat. That's on the way to Bermuda. And the only reason that's important is for reasons I'm going to tell you later about the America's Cup. So that's just a little hidden. Stay online for it. We have been working with creating and implementing integrated customer-centric strategies since 1985. So what we do is we create and implement them in the area of CRM, which I think is increasingly called social CRM, data onboarding, which I'll be going into a little bit more definition, big data analytics, social media, customer experience, e-commerce, and some of the new emerging technologies, mobile apps, Internet of Things, etc. And we come in and we help a company in terms of getting an executive team together to brief them on either any of these tools or the concept of integrated customer-centric strategy. We'll do an assessment of how well the company's doing that area. We'll create the strategy and or implement the strategy. But at all times, I've always believed that the only thing that counts is, do we have an impact as a result of these new tools and techniques? And if not, we've wasted time, money, and effort. But if we can achieve a business impact, which I believe you can, done properly, the impact can be quite significant. So I've had the honor of working with a variety of very well-known companies. I don't put these up to show off in any way, but they're just companies that are at the forefront of their thought leadership, and I've had the pleasure of working with them. This is the non-manufacturing side. This is the manufacturing side. But I say that because they tend to be leaders in their respective fields, and they try things before other companies are willing to try things. So what I want to do in this next 30 or so minutes is to share some of the stories that I've learned from these companies with you as it applies to mastering digital transformation. And so again, let's just lock in on the topic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to define the concept of digital transformation. I'm going to refer to it as a digital deluge. I'm going to talk about how I think organizations should address the digital transformation. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how companies have addressed it. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to be at. And then Mike's going to take over and give you some insight about how BPM helps to power the whole digital transformation. For those tweeting during today's webcast, please use the hashtag ISM Digital Strategy. Okay, so the question I ask is, how pervasive is the digital transformation? And the way I like to refer to it is a digital fire hose. And I'm not going to read the kind of statistics up on the board, but bottom line, when you have more tweets, 500 million tweets posted daily than there are books in the world, or when you have more, and I don't have the figure up there, but there are more now Facebook interactions, than there are toothbrushes in the world, you know that this digital fire hose is not going away. And you know that this is something that we have to deal with as organizations, regardless of our size. Just as some quick stats, I looked them up this morning. Social media, which is a part of the digital fire hose, generates almost double the marketing leads as a trade show or telemarketing or web ads. And 71% of consumers receiving quick brand response on a social media site actually recommend that brand. And 68% of all online users check out companies on social media before they buy. So, you know, it's a new era, and we all know that. So our job then becomes, towards the bottom, given there's a fire hose of information being received on a regular basis, an organization needs to decipher which digital activities really impact their business versus not so relevant. And then, as it says, you need to gather, organize, analyze, and exploit this deluge of data coming from the digital fire hose to the advantage of your company. Now, one could get overwhelmed with this slide of, oh my goodness, you know, how do we deal with it? And I don't get overwhelmed just based on years of experience. I ask this question: is this long-term sustainable? And if yes, why? Because this is nice to know, but do I need to know? And I look at two key digital transformation drivers, at least in my observation. One is what I call the now consumer. That's my niece. I was up at her birthday party. She's 13. So, you know, she says she has the audacity to say to her uncle, "Hey, Uncle Bart, what was your favorite app when you were my age?" You know, this is the era that just understands the world started when they started. But 70% of these kids, and I've got a 16 and 18-year-old, the teenagers in the U.S. buy digitally, and it's really a revolution in its infancy. So the question is, will the now customer go away? And the answer is heck no. Will the now customer grow? And the answer is yes. So that's a digital driver that is supporting this digital transformation, the digital fire hose, more and more. The second digital driver that I'd like to turn to is what I call the pocket PC. And that is 95% of knowledge workers carry a very powerful smartphone, which in effect is the equivalent of a PC in their pocket. So today, you know, we use it for a lot of functions, but video, streaming media, live virtual broadcasts, all of these are in the makings, and it's just a matter of literally months and or, you know, years for that to happen. So if we look at, on the one hand, the now generation, and on the other hand, the pocket PCs, my conclusion is these two drivers are sound, and your job now is to secure, grow and secure the digital customer. And that brings me to my first poll. Before I move into that, I'd like to ask this question to you, and Mike, I'd ask you to launch it. Where is your organization as you understand it in this digital transformation? You know, the ability to address the now customer, to make yourself available on the pocket PC, and to bring, you know, to use digital information either to them or from them to better serve your customer. So are you completed the journey? How you implement the journey right now? Have you got plans to commence the journey? Or are you at this time sitting on the fence? And I'll give you guys about another 10 seconds, and then I would ask Mike to just give us the results.
And I should have noticed, I should have noted, we do want this to be interactive, so please participate in the polls. There's going to be, I think, 4 of them throughout. Also, feel free to enter your questions. We'll be monitoring them and answering them along the way. So a couple more minutes here on this poll. And actually, here's the initial results. It looks as though the middle of the pack is leading with over 75%. We've planned the journey, and we've got plans to commence the journey. Not so many have completed it, and luckily there aren't too many that have no plans. Any comments on those, Barton?
No, that's good to hear. I've been doing this for a lot of time, and usually the number is higher on the no plans. It doesn't surprise me on the completed. There are a few that have completed it effectively, but that's good. So I know my audience, and thank you. I appreciate that. So I close with securing and growing the digital customer engagement. Now, you know, from a kind of a pedantic approach, these are the 4 steps you need to do. You need to gather digital and non-digital information about your customer. You need to analyze it. In the words of my friends at Marriott Corporation, one of our customers, you need to derive actionable insights, not just, you know, nice to know, but need to know. And then you deploy digital tools and you customize and optimize each customer experience so as to drive, you know, loyalty and advocacy and satisfaction. But you see, the challenge here is, which digital input do you apply this to? Is it coming from the social media side? Is it the website side? Is it the the mobile app side? Where do you gather? And for me, it's always been a challenge as to how to make this happen in a big picture sense. And so what I did is I sat back about maybe in March of this year or something like that, and I drew this picture. And what I'm going to do is give you a very brief overview of this picture, and then I'm going to go into pieces of it as a way of explaining how to master the digital transformation area. So it's titled on purpose Integrated Customer-Centric Strategy. And integrated, you'll see in a minute why. It's those red lines, red arrows and the blue arrows. Customer-centric strategy because ultimately the digital customer, the now customer, increasingly is digital, so we have to be sensitive to that, but not everybody is digital, so we also have to be sensitive to that. So bottom, just a real quick overview, and I'm going to break it up into pieces. The bottom piece of it talks in the center of it of a holistic profile. That's our knowledge, or customer master as it's referred to in some companies or organizations. And that picks up data from a variety of different sources, transactional, CRM, and third party. I'll explain what it is. And we use data onboarding tools to integrate online and offline data so the profile's at its best, most comprehensive, most holistic. Then we use the big data analytics tools critical to better understand, segment our customers, and so we can market, sell, and service more effectively to them. On the top of that, so that's kind of the base of a successful integrated customer-centric strategy. And as you can see, that profile, if it's not clear, sits inside typically CRM systems, or at least the CRM data is a critical component. Thus the reason why I'm looking forward to hear what Mike has to say on the BPM side of how they deal with this. But that's the core. Holistic data, online, offline, integrated, big data analytics on top of it, allowing us to have insight to our customers. Then there are four what I call customer engagement pillars. There's traditional social media, e-commerce, emerging technology, and customer experience, the one on the top horizontal. And what each of these are ways that we reach our customers. Some of it is non-digital. That's the traditional. I'll go over that in a little bit. Some of them is digital, so social media, e-commerce, emerging technology, customer experience. The little bullets underneath there show you these are ways that customers engage with us. And in all of these instances, if we listen carefully, if we listen to how people respond in a meeting face-to-face, or in a private community, or on a shopping cart, or how they respond to a next best offer, or what they, how they're using their mobile app from a location and utilization perspective. If we're listening to the voice of the customer with digital surveys or journey maps or channel, listening to how they use channels, then if we're very astute, we're able to take that digital insight or non-digital insight, bring it down through our big data analytics layer into the profile, into the holistic customer profile. Now we have a richer data set that we apply our big data analytics tools to, and we come out in this case with more appropriate face-to-face meetings, or email, or advertising, or direct mail, or better threads on a community, or blogs, or subject matter experts, or more relevant individualized portals, or a better next best offer, or a more appropriate mobile app, or a better journey map, or a new enhanced channel. So the concept behind this is, if we have as the core a strong holistic profile, and we listen to some of the digital and non-digital inputs coming in that are driving customer experience, then ultimately we're going to be smarter at allowing us to acquire, retain, and grow our customers, which is at the top of the screen. But before I get ahead of myself, let me kind of break it down into pieces and go into a little more detail. So the first one I want to talk about is, in mastering digital transformation, the holistic customer profile. And here I just have written on this very extensively over a number of years, books, articles, da-doop. There is nothing more important in my books than having a true view of the customer, a holistic profile. And a lot of companies say they do it. I don't think many companies do it well. I think a lot of companies do it in lots of different pieces, some on the database, some on CRM, some on Post-it, some in their day timers, some in the ERP system, some on online. But it's the ability to pull it together so that we can get the big picture of the customer that's really very, very important. And in doing that, what we typically have is we have an ability now to have not just traditional data, and traditional could be, for example, ERP system data, point of sale data. It could also be web click-through data That's kind of more transactional. We have CRM data coming from our sales pipelines, from our CRM customer incident management and resolution and tracking systems. We have it coming from our marketing campaigns. We have a whole bunch of CRM relevant data, customer loyalty data from loyalty programs. And then we increasingly have these third-party data sources. So not just the demographic and lifestyle from Experian or Axiom, but we're now getting specific data on specific industries, and it's really very rich and valuable data. So the job then becomes, and this is the good news, we are able to get data from transaction, CRM, third party into the profile better because the APIs and the integration layers are much cleaner and easier to use. And in a moment I'm going to introduce the data onboarding tool, which has really allowed us to facilitate the integration of online and offline data directly into the profile. But what I'm trying to say here on the profile is I've always alluded to it as a daisy, and what we have is we have the customer in the center of the daisy. This happens to be Beneteau. I'm a sailor, I told you that's one of our customers, and I'm a fan of Beneteau. So I put them at the middle. Now you can buy a Beneteau boat directly, you can buy it from the dealer, that's why there's two pictures. But these are the petals of information that we have about either Bart or the customer, the dealer in this case. Contact, any alerts, activities that are outstanding, what are purchased, whether the dealer is financially sound and whether we've made money with them, new sales opportunity, any quotes we may have had, service issues, old or new, dealer information, marketing, campaigns that we've responded to. And then there's the one in gold, which is the digital insight, and that's the new piece with the Mastering Digital Transformation theme, that we now have digital insights coming from social media, coming from e-commerce, coming from journey maps, coming from mobile apps, coming from a variety of different tools, and that's something new that we have to be aware of. So a sound customer profile, critical to the ability to build on some type of what I'd like to call an integrated customer-centric strategy. Now, I alluded to already, but I want to go into it a little bit more, and that is this concept of data onboarding, because that, quite frankly, is a fairly new tool. A couple of years old at most. It's really, really interesting. Now, a lot of people see data onboarding as a marketing tool or a way to market more effectively. I expanded beyond that into sales and customer service. But here's what data onboarding, kind of the concept behind it. So customer journeys today for a customer has become increasingly complex. So a consumer or a customer may, on the one hand, see a display ad on their mobile phone. Then they go back and they watch a video ad on their desktop. They then may go visit the insight on their tablet, and they may make a purchase in the store. And a lot of the times these interactions are anonymous, so it's hard to know, are you reaching your customer with marketing dollars, with sales effort, with customer service capabilities? And what data onboarding has done is it acknowledges that our job in the sales, marketing, customer service is to reach audiences everywhere with traditional means, whether it's the old direct mail or email or television or radio, or whether it's the new ways through websites or mobile or search. There's a whole, our job is to really make sure we reach our audiences everywhere, but the challenge is that the way we reach our audiences is different. In the old days, it was traditional phone and cable and TV and press and that sort of thing. Then we moved kind of 10, 15 years ago to what I call the spray and play digital marketing approach, where the thinking was, if we use email and websites and search and we sprayed enough, then people would, connect to us. But that's really given way to what might be better called the data-driven approach to reaching our customers. And that's more your one-to-one marketing using a variety of different tools, cross data. There's a variety of different tools that allow us to be more data-driven. Internet of Things, wearables, addressable TV, they all give you data inputs that allow you to be more savvy. And the concept behind data onboarding, and it's led by companies like LiveRamp or Data Logic, there's a bunch of them out there. Not everybody's good, by the way, but there's a bunch that are reasonable, is what they let you do is, as you may have data about your customer. Let's say I'm a Jaguar owner. I'm an owner of 3 Jags. I love old Jags. The Jaguar shop knows who I am. They've got all kinds of transactional data. But when I go onto the Jag site to look at something new, or the Jag social media communities, I don't come in as Barton Goldenberg. I have either aliases or home computers, or they don't know who I am. But by taking the data onboarding tools, and once I've authenticated on the web and I lay a cookie in the site of a Jaguar website and the Jaguar social, the moment I authenticate it, let's just say Match.com or Ticketmaster, then the ability is that they know who I am. The cookies go backwards. They realize, oh, that was Bart on the Jaguar social media site. That was Bart on the website. Now they can bring that data in, so we have the transactional data about Bart's 3 Jags that they know, the dealer, when I get it serviced, etc., with, hey, Bart's looking at this car on social or on the website, and we now have a more holistic profile. So that's a really cool development. Allowing companies to do is the data onboarding service sits between the data buckets and the marketing or sales or service applications, and it allows us to both integrate both online and offline data. And if you're not familiar with this, really magic stuff, because what it's allowing you to do is it's allowing you to offer the right product to the right customers to the right channel, because you better understand the learning journey. And so I think that's very interesting. So let's go to an example of that, because I think it's important enough. I gave the Jaguar example. This is BMW. So they have purchase data on people that buy the BMW. They have service data on when it's fixed at the dealer. They have dealer data. They even have lease expiration dates. That's all, you know, information that is what we'll call offline, transactional type data. And they do demographic appends, by the way, with, you know, I think it's Axiom or Experian. But what they don't necessarily have, and I alluded to it in the Jaguar example, is the website behavior, the social behavior. And that's because not everybody authenticates themselves when they're online, and people eliminate their cookies, and, you know, there's just a whole bunch of reasons why we don't always know who's who. But how could you possibly make a decision about Bart and Jaguars on my transactional data alone, or in this case the BMW, if you didn't also understand my website behavior and social media, where I have the ability now, if I can bring the two together, to tie data all together into a single identifier, and that's Barton, so I can better market, sell, and service me. So that's just the example on the data onboarding. If we go to the next layer up, which is big data analytics, again, I'm a real fan of big data analytics, but again, you have to put it into perspective, and I'll get to my sailing in a minute. So what's really changed in big data? And I'll tell you what's changed. The model of how you generate and consume data has changed. And what I mean by that is, in the older days, there were few information providers that were supplying data to many. And now we have many information providers, all of us are information providers, that are providing data to many. So before it was few to many, now it's many to many. And what that's led to, as you see on the screen, is there's more data produced in the last 2 years, 3.56 trillion bytes, than in all of history. And the fact of the matter is, in the next 4 years, that will increase from 3.5 sextillion to 35 sextillion, and 1/3 of all that data will be stored in the cloud. Now, I don't want to talk about 2030, 2040, 2050, because this is enough to tell you, oh my goodness, we really need to get on top of our data and understand how to use big data analytics tools to better understand our customers. And there's no shortage of data analytic opportunities, whether you do segmentation, whether you do opportunity sizing, acquisition modeling, lead scoring, cross-sell next best offer, retention, survival modeling, response modeling, customer lifetime value modeling. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. So let me give you a quick example of one of our customers, Zumba Fitness. I can't tell because I'd normally ask people how many are Zumba dancers, but I hope many of you are. It's a wonderful company and a wonderful way to keep yourself fit. But here's a company that was so they have what are called Zumba instructors. These are the people that teach the class, and these people are called ZINs, Zumba Instructor Network. But the ZINs are really, you know, a very important part of their overall go-to-market strategy. And what they wanted to do was to categorize these Zumba instructors into groups that had similar behaviors and characteristics so they could better service them. They wanted to then align personal communication to maximize the value of each of their ZINs, and then shape and define the customer journey for a ZIN by the type of segment they're in. And so we worked with them to create 5 new segments. It's not important which the segments are. They had tremendous rich data sources, both online and offline, so they knew what the ZINs were purchasing for merchandise, what training courses they took, what Zumba conventions they went to, sometimes and often the case the class postings, what licenses they had, etc. And from third-party data, they had demographic information about did they have children or hobbies. So we had a pretty good understanding of what the ZIN was, and that allowed us to begin to use the data analytics to model, come up with 5 segments of common behavior and characteristics. But as anybody that knows big data analytics, you can't stop there. You have to do the qualitative as well. So we went out, we interviewed 30 ZINs for each of the 5 segments, a total of 150. 20 of the ZINs were current ZINs, 10 were churned ZINs, so we got a feel for, existing and new. We tried to understand which factors were driving engagement. We asked them about experience and their apparel and teaching, their courses, apparel they buy. And so we use qualitative and quantitative to come together. We really use this qualitative to refine the segments. And then that comes back out in terms of, customer journey mapping. And what it's allowed is better processes, securing and training, growing the ZINs more effectively, and it's really impact how they do business. So nobody can deny the significance and the importance of big data, but I just make one quick point, and that goes back to boating. I don't know how many of you were involved in watching the wonderful 2013 America's Cup on the West Coast, but as you probably know, or maybe remember, the skipper of the Oracle boat, who was down at that point, I think it was 8-1, and you have to win 9 races to win the America's Cup. He's an Australian called Jimmy Spithill, a wonderful skipper. Grew up in if you look at his track record, just a tremendous successful skipper and sailor in general. 11 crew on the boat. That boat is capable of going 45 knots or nautical miles an hour. That's 55 miles an hour. So you can see why they wear helmets and stuff. It's a whole new game. But he was down 8-1, and the computer told him at Oracle, and this is not going to make a lot of, maybe it will make sense. You see that little arrow? It shows what's called a foil. A foil lifts the boat out of the water, so the boat's really sailing on that fin. Well, in order to get the boat out of the water, you have to have a certain wind angle for the foil to lift up. And the Oracle team was not getting the lift on the foil as quickly as, in this case, the New Zealand Kiwis were. And so what the Oracle computer said using the big data analytics was you have to go at a certain wind angle, like it was 50 degrees, whereas the Kiwis are going at a tighter wind angle, 42, and it's a trade-off the wind angle, and they were foiling and Oracle wasn't. And Spithill sat back in his bed. He was down 8-1. He was about to be at the first major embarrassment of his career. And he said, I don't care what the computer says. I don't care what the big data says. I'm looking at the foil coming out of the water. 42 is the right angle, not 50, or vice versa. And this is what we need to do. When he went in, he won 8 straight, and Oracle, did something nobody's ever done and won the America's Cup down 8-1. So the message I'm passing on big data analytics is don't forget to look outside of the boat. Use your common sense, because you get so much data all day long, as this Gertrude has said, you really can lose your common sense. Okay, the last thing I want to look at, the last big bucket I want to look at is social media, and that's one of the customer engagement pillars. So why am I choosing this one? Because I happen to like this one, and I wrote a book on it. So here's what I said about 2011. I sat back, looked at the CRM industry, and I saw the next big wave coming, and I called it, or at least alluded to it, as social CRM. And here was what my thinking was. If you understand the transactional side of your customer but don't understand what they're saying about you on social media, whether they like to work with you, what they like to work with you, how can you possibly have a clear focus of your customer? How can you be in the right place at the right time with the right product if you really don't know where your customer's at? Now, again, these are rhetorical questions and maybe silly now, but I think they were the right question to ask a few years back. And I said, if we could take the CRM data that a BPM can house, transactional type of data, ERP, CRM, and other things that come in, which are more transactional nature, and we could marry that with the social media, which is more of an attitudinal data, and you could then bring that back into a CRM like Bpm'online, then in fact you would have the big picture. At least that was my feeling. And that led me to write that new book called The Definitive Guide to Social CRM, 2014, published 15, published by Pearson, April 2000. And in every book that I've written, including the new one, I have a schema. So this was the schema or diagram of the book. And what I said was, to do social CRM effectively, what you want to do is you want to listen to public communities on the left-hand side. That's LinkedIn, that's Facebook communities, public social media communities, or private communities on the right-hand side. Those are the ones that are built on platforms like Mazinga or Jive or Lithium or Telligent and others. Same thing, the concept is you have blogs and you have forums and you have discussions and you have polls and you have experts and, ask the expert. Just a way of basically communicating, socializing with customers. And regardless of whether you use public or private, that's a whole other discussion not worthy of raising it in this presentation, but regardless of what you do, if you listen carefully in step number 2 and you filter, then what you're doing is you're listening to what customers are saying about your company or about your product. And then in step 3, you download relevant information, if you can, down to the individual that said it and put it inside your CRM. And needless to say, it goes into your customer profile, that digital petal on the flower I showed you earlier on. And now we're much smarter about, in step 4, how we're going to engage with the customer. So just a quick story. It's a true story. It's Ritz-Carlton. It took place in Las Vegas. It was a honeymoon couple that had just landed in Sin City. They went to the Ritz-Carlton in Las Vegas, which is owned by Marriott, and they checked in, and they were all happy, you know, newlyweds. So they put them in a beautiful room. It was you know, the typical Ritz-Carlton with the wood paneling and maybe not that fireplace, and it was just gorgeous furniture. You know, a little British as it's always been. And the bride tweets and says, you know, we made it. This has been an exciting journey. We're at this this beautiful hotel. But, you know, it's not exactly what we thought. I mean, we came here to be on the strip. We don't see anything. It looks like my grandfather's room. But, oh, well, you know, I got my husband, my new husband. I'm going to be just fine. And that then was a tweet that she sent to her friends. And within 7 minutes, Marriott Corporation, that monitors on the top left-hand side of this picture, tweets, had brought it back down into her profile and made, or into her you know, situation, and immediately got in touch with the hotel manager at Ritz-Carlton in Las Vegas, who got together, huddled for a couple minutes and said, I think there's something wrong here, knocked on the door about another minute later and said, you know, we've been thinking about this, newlyweds, Las Vegas. Why don't we put you in the corner room? It's a glass room. It overlooks a strip. It's got a jacuzzi in the shape of a heart. You know, that might be something you might like. Would you mind if we did that? No, they said, no, that'd be great. So they moved to the room, and 2 minutes later, she tweets all her friends again, saying, you're not going to believe what just happened. It's like Ritz-Carlton had ESP, but they moved us to this incredible room. You know, Ritz-Carlton rocks, right? So that's the value of engaging customers at their point of contact. I'll just close this with one other story. ExxonMobil is one of our customers, another customer. And several years ago, 3 years ago, we created something called the Mobile SHC Club. Long story short, what ExxonMobil was trying to do was position themselves as industry and application experts. These were the objectives: shape the brand image of Mobile SHC lubricant and drive business goals. Now, for those that don't know Mobile SHC, which I don't expect you to, you probably heard of Mobile One. Mobile One is for consumer cars. That's the molecule. And it's a wonderful product, all synthetic. Mobile SHC is the similar molecule, it's the same molecule, but similar preparation, but it's for the industrial sector. So it's used by machines, for example. Well, today, long story short, we have 2,000, almost 2,000 lubrication engineers around the globe on the private community called Mobile SHC Club. When they sign into the private community, they have to sign a little signature saying, yep, you can use the information I talk about in this community to drive better products and services back to me and help ExxonMobil in the research and development. So as they talk to each other in these wonderful you know, forums and discussion groups, we are listening, and we harvest that information, bring it down into the profile, step number 3 of the CRM system at ExxonMobil, and it goes out to the sales guys and gals as a way of now engaging the customer more effectively. Interesting, in the recent surveys, because ExxonMobil is a fantastic company with great, you know, kind of professional approach to doing business, so metrics is important. We learned that the private community was the best place to get answers to questions, wonderful for peer-to-peer exchange. It's exclusive, and then you have to be invited. And all I can tell you is the lift at ExxonMobil from both distributors who distribute their products and consumers who consume their products over the last several years has been in meaningfully double-digit figures, and it's just a tremendous success story. So there's an example of where we are able to take the data coming from social media, bring it down in through the big data analytics into our CRM bucket, feed the profile with richer data, come back and do the analytics, and come back out with better, you know, in the case of ExxonMobil, better blogs, better forums, better discussion polls, etc. So there's an integration between the bottom of this schema and what I call the customer engagement pillars. But let me finish off the remaining pillars. I don't have the time to go into much more detail. The traditional should make sense to everybody. We can engage our customers through face-to-face meetings, sales, marketing, customer service, with phone conversations, with advertising or direct mail pieces, with email exchange. We can go out and do paper-bound surveys. or even face-to-face focus groups. And these are ways we get insight into how the customer enjoys engaging with us. I've talked a little bit about the social media engagement pillar. E-commerce and emerging technology, nothing magic here. Think about the digital insight we gather each time somebody gets to our website, and we begin to authenticate them if we can, or individualized portals for corporations, or learning how people search so we can better define our search capabilities, or the infamous shopping cart, or a better next best offer that Amazon or Zappos or anybody else might offer you. All of that is rich digital data. Properly harvested comes down through the big data analytics layer into the profile. We look at what that means and come back out with better websites and better portals and better shopping carts and better next best offers. Emerging technology takes us a little further out, kind of 2020, 2030 as we move forward. But today it's really about mobile apps. We have the location element that's new, in addition to all the other things of what you look for, when you look for it, how you look for it. But now we know where you look for it, in what location. Wearables on the consumer side, Internet of Things on the B2B side. Virtual and augmented reality, mark my words on this, a tremendous technology that will become a challenge to the whole way we even do the Internet. And then personalized videos, addressable TV, these are all emerging technologies. But every one of them gives us tremendous insight into what that is important to that customer. Again, properly harvested, we bring it down through into the customer profile, apply the big data analytics, and we come back out with better apps or better, Internet of Things sensors or better augmented reality experiences, etc. The fifth and final, what I call customer engagement pillar, sits horizontal, and that's the customer experience pillar. And that's the voice of the customer through digital surveys or journey maps or channels, optimizing what channels they use. And all of these customer engagement pillars, traditional, social media, e-commerce, emerging technologies, they all impact customer experience. So we have to be sensitive. Are we capturing what is important to them or what's not important to them, and are we utilizing it effectively? Because properly done, that will drive, as it says up the top, customer acquisition, retention, and growth. And the key message and why it's called integrated customer-centric strategy is a lot of companies do these pillars, these customer engagement pillars, independently. They do social media, but that's separate from e-commerce. They do e-commerce, that's separate from customer experience. They do emerging technologies, that's separate from traditional. But the great companies that will survive and master the digital transformation are the ones that will understand you have to share information across these pillars, up and down and across. And that's what allows us to now get the holistic and more holistic and better holistic profile of our customer so we can engage them more effectively. So this is the schema of my new book called Integrated Customer-Centric Strategy, Your Roadmap to Success for 2030. But I just want to kind of give you that thought. Now, in closing, I want to give a couple of quick observations. Number one, mastering the digital transformation is not a technology game. I could have told you those were technologies or tools inside in this roadmap. I don't think they are. I really think they're customer engagement, ways to engage customers through tools and techniques and processes and all kinds of things. So the technology is 20% of the success. 80% are about people and processes. So if we don't have good customer-facing processes, if we don't have people that are bought into those processes, both in the company and outside the company, you don't succeed. And just to reinforce this, I want to end up with a couple of quick stories. So plan on the people side, particularly with the 50%, which is your biggest, challenge in pulling off an integrated customer-centric strategy or mastering digital transformation. Plan for executive skepticism. Kraft Foods, now owned by Heinz. Senior Vice President Jim Rowe, no longer with the company after the merger. Wonderful, wonderful guy. We did analysis on the southeast region of America, it was Georgia and Florida, about sales of Kraft food service. That's who the people that sell to the restaurants and to cafeterias and to universities. We did an analysis of where he was overexposed, underexposed, or overpenetrated, underpenetrated, and which chains were selling as well as others or not as well, and where they could further room for growth or spend your time elsewhere. And I'll never forget, we presented this to him in Glenview, Illinois, and he was happy as a lark. And then we said, oh, great, Jim, so when are you going to tell Fred, who at that time was the president of Kraft Foods? And he said, I'm not. What do you mean you're not going to tell him about this? He said, if I go in and show him that, this data, my president's going to say to me, you see, Jim, I told you for years you've been selling the wrong products, the wrong people at the wrong time, you're underpenetrated here, you're overpenetrated, and he's going to just chew me out. So that's a good, indication of the people side in action. Even though we might have the integrated integrated customer-centric strategy, it's not a slam dunk. Nor is it a slam dunk that you have the right people in your company, the skill set that allows you to do the mess of the digital transformation. Because it's no longer just take the marketing department. It's no longer a single marketer. It's the creative marketer and the technical marketer. The creative will help you determine how to secure more real-time data coming from your brand loyal customers who are sensitive to privacy issues, right, or privacy issues. But you need the technical marketer to harness this real-time data coming from these customers using new tools and delivering smarter, insightful decision-making. So what has to happen now inside companies is it's all about collaboration between the marketing and the technical shop. Well, my time's up. I want to close with just a couple of thoughts. How do you master the digital transformation? It would be my observation. I'll just give you some thoughts. First of all, conduct an assessment. Where are you? Where are you in each of the pillars? Where are you in your holistic profile on the bottom piece of pulling together data online and offline? And then what I'm looking for, and that's when I created that picture, is a 3 to 5 year roadmap that says we're not going to accomplish it all at once. It's not going to happen like that. But we are going to lay out, how do you bite off an elephant in pieces? We're going to lay out the piece over a 3 to 5 year roadmap. If there's any guidance I can give you based on experience, prioritize activities in the roadmap based on your company's ability to achieve measurable results and success. So, don't be bothered by what competitors are doing. Kind of see what works within your culture. And remember, people, process, technology, not just the technology side. Let me then close with just this last poll, and that is, if you open that up, Mike, digital transformation is critical. We saw where you were, kind of 75% were either implementing or planning, but I just want to get a temperature. Digital transformation is critical for my organization's survival. Could I get a quick response on that by clicking on the appropriate button?
Yep, so Barton, great presentation, and I like the use of the word deluge because obviously there's so many sources of data. The other thing I really picked off was that one channel really drives the other through analytics, and whether those analytics are coming from social media or the data points coming from social media or the Internet of Things, really leveraging big data analytics to then make sense out of them. And then, in the end, layer it all with common sense. One of the questions that came out there is specifically what big data tools you've seen most useful that allows you to drink off the fire hose and make actionable assumptions out of that.
Yeah, I think the tools are around. By the way, what were the figures? Do we have the figures on just for me to learn how critical the digital transformation is to our guests?
Yeah, actually, so the results came in very strongly, I should say. Strongly agree, 51%. 40% on top of that agree. So only 9% were below that line. So
that's good. I just want to get a temperature. I kind of take it. So now to answer your question real quickly, is I want to get to your side, Mike. I go back to my days teaching marketing at big universities around the world, and I go back to that concept of segmentation. And what I like about big data analytics tools is we can do real-time, first we can do segmentation, and then we can do real-time offers to those segments. And we can do all of this as it's, in real time and change it in real time. So what big data analytics tools? The ones that allow us to do a tremendous initial segmentation job and then come back in on the digital data and in real time make best offers or change the, as I've alluded to, the social media thread, or come out with a more effective portal or a better mobile app. I think it's the segment. It's all about knowing your customer, and segments are a great way to do it. You append the segments with data, qualitative, quantitative, and then you use the tools to come back out and use them for engagement through such things I've already alluded to, that we can better engage our customers in, whether it is however you do it on the pillars. So I think the tools really are about segmentation and then real-time actioning or real-time customer engagement, Mike.
That sounds great, Barton. And so we are moving along in time. We have a bunch of other questions. I might actually leave them to the end to see if we do have time. Certainly, folks, if we didn't get to your questions, we'll follow up, digitally with some answers. But now I'd like to switch gears a little bit. Again, I'm the SVP General Manager here at Bpm'online, and want to talk about specifically how a BPM-based CRM platform can help you digest the whole digital transformation. Just a couple stats here. More than 3/4 of the businesses in this particular survey state that this is a #1 priority, the digital transformation, and those who have embraced it are 26% more profitable and 12% higher market valuation. So I think people do understand that the digital transformation is here, it's here to stay, and it's going to be extremely important for the businesses. So as we look at how a process-driven CRM like Bpm'online can support the digital transformation, we really like to highlight two different things. The first being improved communications across all the digital channels, as Barton referred to, as well as having the ability to change your operational processes as quickly as possible in response to those channels and the changing customer behavior. So again, another quick poll here. Do you believe your current technology has everything required to support the digital transformation? And we'll look at yes, to some extent, and I don't think it does, or no. Real quick. So the majority thinks to some extent, but actually favoring a bit to the I don't think so. So 51% to some extent, 26% I don't think so. So kind of right in the middle. 15% say yes, their technology is up to speed. So some quick framing of our audience. So let's talk about the customer journey, and Barton alluded to this, and I think we all realize that one of the biggest manifestations of the digital transformation is just the sheer number of channels that an individual can speak to us through. And so if you take this particular case where this lady's looking to buy a new laptop per se, she may get some input through Facebook, through social media, do what we all do, go to Google and search online, then actually visit a store to test things, touch and feel. Then maybe a call into their service center with specific questions about the options, place an order online, and then actually get feedback or service through Twitter. Bottom line is she's walking across marketing, sales, and service in the traditional world, and it's really important that regardless of how that buyer view looks, which can look somewhat random from the outside and be difficult to capture all the data points, being able to capture those and put them into a systematic, repeatable, consistent process is really what Bpm'online's platform allows you to do across marketing, sales, and service. So regardless of where those touch points come from, omni-channel, of course, mostly social these days, the response from the company and the interaction is always consistent. So regardless of the path, you get consistency in communication with those customers' experience. The second example we wanted to talk about, the benefit of Bpm'online or Bpm'online plus CRM with regards to the digital transformation, is how do you handle all the changes that are happening as customers approach through different channels, and we're gaining, as we said, boatloads of information, to use another boating term, from the different sources. So 61% of the business leaders out there say it's going to require some significant organizational changes to actually achieve their digital transformation. And the same study here says that throughout 2017, insufficient business process management or control of that digital deluge is going to prevent 80% of the organizations of actually achieving their goals. So it kind of leads us to the point that having a business process management or process-driven CRM platform, when we say CRM, we're really talking about all customer-facing processes, so marketing, sales, and service, becomes very important. So I thought we'd use somewhat a case of one of our customers, a thinly guised view of one of our customers. Happens to be a company that produces and distributes truck parts, accessories, and services. And traditionally, they had always sold into larger organizations, through more of a corporate communication process. They made a strategic decision, somewhat based on, the internet and the ease of connecting with people through digital sources, to add to their strategy and sell their parts to smaller distributorships. And so we want to follow through some of the changes they were able to do within Bpm'online to respond to that. And the first was, again, their traditional channel was corporate sales, and they used pretty much out of the box Bpm'online's corporate sales process. And if you were able to read this, you might see hints of Miller-Hyman in here because that's what it's based on. But when they looked to this more field sales focus at a lower end, they realized they really weren't going to need the true formal needs assessment, and they weren't going to need formal proposal preparation step. So with the visual designer, they're able to clean out those steps in that process, still have the larger, bigger, complex process running, but create a separate process for this new target market. And likewise, in a sub-process that had them visiting a customer to negotiate a deal, these are all going to be online purchases, and they were able to swap that out with a couple clicks to make that a phone call. So these are automated processes that are happening behind the scenes in their platform, and so the end user just sees the end result of that. They also decided for these field sales folks, they wanted to offer guided selling, and the platform allowed them to define the tasks that the particular sales rep would take as they went across each site. On top of that, so they went from large sales with smaller volumes of leads to smaller sales with a huge volume of leads, leveraging digital marketing that we'll talk about in a minute. And so they needed a better way to visualize that than just a sheer list of all the different leads as they come into the system. Certainly you can leverage that as well, but what they did was they went in and built on the fly pretty much a dashboard that fit their needs. So again, just a number of clicks, an end user can pretty much do this, the different lead sources, leads to by maturity, etc. And what they ended up with, that same data was then transformed into a dashboard that both management and the individual reps or the territory managers could use. So that was some of the changes that they made in sales. Additionally, with marketing, like I said, rather than kind of the one-on-one account-based marketing, they wanted to do more digital marketing, automated personalization, if you will. And so where the campaign, a particular campaign strategy, started with that personal invitation, they were able to front-end that with more of a digital approach for inbound leads that landed on a landing page. So they designed the landing page for those, I think they did mostly bulk email marketing, but also social media that drove people to this landing page, allowed them to define the information that they wanted to capture, and then actually be able to track the sources of all those leads as they came in. So depending on what led them to that landing page, we're able to track that and analyze the success and really ROI of those different campaigns. Then the final step was they needed to transform their service processes. It had been very much, person-to-person, targeted accounts or assigned accounts by reps that went and visited. And they realized, particularly for incoming calls and service inquiries, they wanted to outsource that to a call center. And so what they had to do was simplify the service process that underlied this, take out some of the, hand touch, person-to-person steps, and launch that. They also needed to include this new outsourced call center into the queues, and that was as easy as defining a separate division, identifying the new employees, or I should say subcontractors within that call center, and that gave that entity access to the system. So that gave those call center agents a single view of their work queue, if you will. And you see on the left, that is actually the next case up for a particular call center user to call on. In the middle, they have an onboard social media capability to collaborate both within the call center but also back to the company. And then also leveraging, again, the dashboard capabilities for their KPIs, call duration, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that happened here in this queue definition, for the on the corporate side, their reps were able to see all the incidents that had been reported in one big queue. And frankly, they could cherry pick the ones they wanted to call based on their relationship, the size of the deal, the criticality, all by their experience. For the call center, they didn't want to give those agents that capability. They just wanted to queue up by priority set by the company what was their next case to bring. So they were able to do that as well. So I know I ran through that quite quickly, but the bottom line is the only constant is change, and having a omni-channel agile CRM platform, I should say customer-facing process platform is really what will allow you to tame the deluge of digital information that's coming in there.
So Mike, let me ask you this question. I think this is very interesting. So what I like, let me tell you what I like. I like the fact that you have, first of all, the hardcore traditional CRM capabilities, creating the profile, making it holistic, bringing in data, kind of the bottom of the drawing that I showed you. But I think what you've said is the successful way to master digital transformation is to make sure you have processes in place and are using a platform like Bpm'online, which is CRM, but has the capability of creating easy-to-use, effective processes that will drive the ability to listen to and gather and secure insight coming from our customers so as to master the digital transformation. Am I understanding this correctly?
That's a great way to frame it, and I would add on to that, kind of dovetailing into everything you talked about, being able to make use of those larger sources of data and persona behavior and profiles to make those processes as intelligent as possible. So rather than a static process that drives a campaign through a static path, taking in, so we can actually in the platform capture an individual's path through the website, and we can trigger specific twists and turns in a campaign based on what they clicked on the site or what they said in social media or what their buying behavior is. So bringing all that into the process and making those processes as intelligent as possible, again, is how we leverage all those data sources you've been talking about.
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you. Maybe one question here. What is your advice for small businesses, less than 50 employees? How can they manage this digital thing? So I certainly a lot of your examples were big companies, and maybe they have the resources to deploy this, but what's the most critical things that a smaller business can do?
So good question, and I should have said that. I use the big company examples because you know them and you can relate to them, but we also service many mid-sized companies as well, or even smaller. It's all the same issue. In fact, typically middle and small-sized companies can move much quicker than large-sized companies. But here's the common factor: the now customer and the PC in your pocket. Those two drivers that I talked about earlier on. So every customer, whether you're big or small, expects the same service from you as they get from UPS or FedEx to tracking, or Zappos to return the products, or Amazon to get the shipment on time and the selection. That's the world, the lens they expect every company to live up to. So now the question becomes, where are you and where is your customer? And in order to do that, you really have to go out and figure out, and we do this all the time with our customers, you survey your customers, you talk to your customers, you figure out which of these digital issues is most pressing. Are they using the social media channel? Would they use the social media channel? Is it really on e-commerce? And if so, is it private portals? Is that what they're expecting? Are they using mobile apps in the field service apps? Is that where they're at? Is the big focus on, knowing what next to do with the company in terms of journey maps? You have to do your homework. Small, medium, or large size business. Then you have to come up with some big picture of these are the areas that our customers think are important. Then you got to, as I said, eat an elephant one bite at a time based on your ability to successfully implement and measure that success. So honestly, it's the same approach. It's just that you're not going to necessarily have the same resources. It may not be global, and so it may not have less people to work on it. But the bottom line is you have to listen to your customers and best guesstimate where they're headed. You have to look at what you're capable of doing today and where's the gap. You have to close it with that roadmap in pieces, right, and biting it off in chunks. And then, use companies like mine or Bpm'online to help you achieve that if you feel that would be beneficial. But, Mike, it's the same process. It's in fact, it's done quicker with small, medium-sized companies because you can make decisions and not get bogged down. But it will be typically smaller efforts. Nonetheless, I ask this question, who could possibly risk not learning how to master the digital transformation today? Which company that doesn't want to end up in the Smithsonian Institute here in Washington, D.C. feels that they're so clever that they don't have to master this digital transformation? And my answer is you'd only be silly if you didn't do that.
Right. I think the answer is nobody. So another question that's come up here and kind of going back to your holistic customer profile creation. So a lot of different layers to that and different inputs. And by the way, we're going a little bit over time. I hope people can hang with us for a couple minutes, just a couple more questions maybe. But in your mind, what's the most significant factor or factors for that holistic customer profile? If somebody was going to add one more component to that, what would you think it should be?
I honestly think it should be that, and it's the new one that I put in there. It's the digital insight, because I think, as I've alluded to, we have lots of data. We can find out from our ERP systems what they bought, or point of sale systems. We can find out from our sales guys what are the opportunities in the pipeline. We can find out from the service shop, when did they last complain, what's opening complaints, how quickly to resolve them. We can find out from the marketing team how effective is that promotion, what have they responded to, what do they like. So we can get lots of kind of data input in the older sense, the petals around the flower, around the daisy. What is new, and it's not easy, by the way, is the digital insight. Why is it not easy? Because, for example, if you're doing Twitter or you're monitoring and filtering, sometimes you'll take, as many companies do, and see how do people feel about Marriott, I don't know, Residence Inn. And they'll get a big picture on Residence Inn, but that doesn't tell me a darn thing about whether Bart liked Residence Inn, and Bart's the customer that you have to influence. So the challenges are setting up your digital listening and your digital insight down to the individual with whom you need to engage. And that's not always easy because, as I said, people use anonymity and a bunch of other things. But what's new in the holistic profile is that digital pedal. And I just think, when you have the attitudinal side, which is digital, and you have the transactional side, which is CRM, and you put the two together in the profile, which is really social CRM, that's when you're able to better engage with customers.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I guess one last question that kind of comes off of that, combining a couple of people's questions actually. What have you seen as the biggest challenge for organizations in taking on digital transformation? And in that, what are some of the typical pitfalls that they should look out for?
So, a small question with another hour webinar discussion, but I'll answer it quickly. Lack of digital sophistication. So a lot of companies, and I deal with some of the best, are very proud of how successful they've been and feel that while digital is important, so too is all the traditional ways because they've worked just fine. And then you have companies, and I'll just use ExxonMobil as an example, which is, one of the best companies in the world, but they sat back 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I had the pleasure of working with them on all this stuff, and said, what we're good at ain't going to be good in the future. And I'm using that in a slangish way. They just concluded that it's in their best interest to not only understand the digital revolution or evolution, but to be on top of it and master it. But one of the challenges is a lot of companies don't necessarily think that way. I've got another large company, I'm going to leave it out, one of the world's biggest banking companies. And I remember them saying to me at a board meeting, Bart, I'm sure this is good for some young startup technology company. We have things working just fine here. So kind of a lack of digital sophistication, maybe we call it digital ignorance, I don't know. What are some of the ways of addressing that? You bring youth in. Remember I talked in the last slide about integrating creative marketer with the data marketer. I mean, that's the idea that it's not about, it's about bringing in people that thrive in this environment. It's about bringing in youth that lives and works in digital all day long. It's about taking risk in small steps. We call them test and learn. There's a variety of different ways we do this. But the bottom line is, to answer your question, the biggest challenge is lack of digital sophistication. That data onboarding tool that I talked about is so powerful. It's going to change the way every company does business in the next 10 years. But a lot of people don't even know what data onboarding is. So it's that lack of sophistication, and then how to put it to use with having the right people inside the company that have a mindset to make that happen.
Excellent answer, and I can tell you I'm quite certain my kids think I suffer from digital ignorance every day. So I think that's going to bring us to a close here. We have one more poll, and that's really just to grade ourselves, so of course we won't share those. But if you could, those of you who are left, how inspired were you by the webinar? Yes, very inspiring. I like the webinar. It was average. Or, life is too brutal for us to be able to inspire you. I hope that's not your case. So if you guys could participate in that, we'd appreciate it, and give you a couple minutes to do that. But Barton, thank you once again for joining us and giving us your view on the digital deluge. I love that term, and really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Mike, and all of the folks at Bpm'online. Again, I am impressed by the company. I continue to be impressed by the company, and I'm deeply honored to have the opportunity to do this with you.
Okay, great. It looks like we're getting pretty good scores, by the way. All right, Barton, have a great day. Thank you, everybody who attended. We had a great crowd, and look forward to our next best practice webinar. Take care.
Take care.